superstars. They're all as good as each other, but they forget they're a team. In New York, it's more about, let's make some money. That's a big brand, of course. Yeah. Let's go.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode in the Leadership Blueprint podcast. If you've not seen any of the previous episodes, please do check them out. We've got some fantastic guests, and we're really enjoying the journey we're going on, speaking to different leaders across the region and getting some fantastic insights on some of their life lessons, some of the things that they would impart knowledge on other individuals. And I think Anton today is going to be an absolutely fantastic person. So Obediah Ayton, thank you so much for joining us. I think, your background with family wealth management, capital raising, you're currently in Abu Dhabi. You've got a couple of different startup firms they're now more mature firms within the accounting space, a bit of tech space. You've also set up some really interesting events around family offices and things, which I think you'll go into in a moment to give us a bit of an overview. There's a lot of great stuff you've done from a sort of networking, entrepreneurial and business standpoint. And I think it really brings together some nice touches today for ideas, leadership, growth, thinking outside the box. You mentioned to me in the past, you don't even have a CV. I think it's super interesting. And I'm going to let you go into that kind of your CV is your recommendations and your reputation. I think that is a really cool little thing for people to sort of focus on and hear more about. So as a start off, again, thanks for joining us. And Obi, please give a quick little intro for people, and then we'll jump in with a couple of questions and go from there. But again, thanks for your time, and over to you.
Perfect. No, thanks for having me, Oliver. And good to share insights always to anybody watching, because it's a challenging world. The UAE is a new market, which is always exciting for everybody to understand. But a bit about myself. I own an investment holding company. We've built our own businesses. We've invested in external companies, and when we make profits, we've invested it into either public markets or private markets. So a little bit of everything. Studied to be an accountant. Didn't really like accounting. And I met a lot of good people on the golf course, and it kind of guided me in a path to where I am today. So that's probably the easiest way to jump into it, but we can talk a little bit more about the specific companies as we get into it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm sure that the question everyone's going to know is, what's your handicap then, being on the golf course a lot?
Yeah, I'm 3 below 0, so very competitive. I've got club championship tomorrow, so after this podcast, I will start thinking about my golf swing. No, I've actually got a bit of a busy afternoon, but so yes, no, golf has taught me a lot of things from when I graduated university, and throughout university in America, I used to caddy. So I used to carry bags for guys on Long Island. A lot of these guys were high net worths, and I listened. I learned how they spoke to each other. I understood what they spoke about. And if I didn't, I'd go and research it. So one of my biggest learning curves was literally the fact that I just listened to all of these amazing people speaking to one another and understanding what they were actually talking about, because a lot of business is discussed on a golf course.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be a long time doing those 18 holes.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. So I suppose that leads us really nicely into what have been some of the, let's say, challenges or interesting dynamics that you've seen, with Middle Eastern family groups and sovereign funds. What have been some of the sort of the key learnings you've had? Because again, you said you like to sit back, listen, take it on board. What's that difference been being here in the Middle East?
I think when I first came here, a lot of the structures, a bit of everything, onshore, offshore, everything was different from what I'd experienced in London or America. So I think my first start was to get this understanding of the landscape. And family businesses I love, because 90% of this market is family businesses. I think it was KPMG just did a recent report, and each family have different siblings. Each family are different size. Each family are in different industries. You might be in automotive, like the Nabuda family or Masood in Abu Dhabi. You might be in construction. You might be in healthcare. But the good thing about the birth of the UAE is every family chimed in to build an industry vertical. So I always say to anybody looking in, whatever company you're looking at, 9 times out of 10, they're owned by a family here.
Yeah.
So there's always a way to kind of map this place out, which is fascinating, and then understand the history behind it all. But I think the biggest key driver here was pandemic. Islamic laws changed. Um, People outside of the UAE understood what the AFC and ADGM was, when before they wouldn't even look at it. In 2021, I set up a Category 3C license in ADGM, and we tried to actually take US money into Abu Dhabi, which was very strange for them because they'd never done it. But moving on to 2024, I think half of America's in Abu Dhabi now. So I
Yeah.
think there's a fast pace happening. There's a lot of people excited about the UAE. It's trending. But I think family businesses and family offices are going to be a hot topic for the foreseeable future.
Mm. Yeah, no, I think I agree, and I think I think it'd be interesting to get your insight. How have you seen it, or how do you see it changing as we're going through the different generations? Different mindset from the younger sibling taking over from the father. There's a lot of obviously compliance and risk being a hot topic in terms of kind of that succession plan piece. How does that work going forward? Are you seeing different types of conversations evolving as the younger generations are getting more involved, or have you already been seeing that for the last few years? Where do you see that in that sort of journey in the longer term sort of succession?
Family businesses, it's most of the generations that are still alive today studied overseas. So
Mm.
it's not like they're not sure what the rest of the world looks like. They're very sure what the rest of the world looks like. I guess it's just with the new generation coming through with a lot of the family businesses, typically a business 50 years ago in the UAE was started by dad. Let's just pick
Yeah.
mum and dad as an example. But now you have 10 siblings. You have 5 brothers, 5 sisters. So the family business all has 10 new opinions of
Mm.
how they want the business to be run or what industries they want it to go to. So you just have more voices, which makes it incredible because the group naturally will become more diverse. But it also means that you've got to listen to more voices, and some of them may not be successful, or some of them may be in high risk, some of them may be in different new territories. So I think just kind of the more succession here is, I mean, the Family Business Centre in Dubai is getting a lot of good press. I think all the new structures that ADGM and DIC are offering are very useful. I think the word family office was overused for many years. I think a lot of businesses think that they're family offices, but they're actually just a investment holding company where they look after a bunch of businesses. So the word family office is becoming a bit more, I would say, visual here, um, and people are exploring structures, because, as I said, each of they're different. So I think the generational shift will be incredible here. I think the new generation have this whole different vision on what this place looks like. You're seeing it from the crown princes all the way down to the third and fourth generation of some of these UAE entities, and the goal is to expand outside. Made in the UAE is to be known outside.
Yeah.
A fund structure in ADGM is meant to be globally recognized. All of this stuff. Yeah. So that next generation is pushing that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see, and I think I've been here as well in the UAE a long time, and it is very fascinating to see this change happening, and I think it's an exciting journey that the country is on. So if we looked at then from a technology standpoint, A, in terms of some of the businesses that you also run, and B, from AI going into the wealth management space, what do you see as some of the, let's call it, inherent risks, and what do you see as some of the major benefits that AI could potentially shape this space? I think it's really interesting to get your insight on that.
I mean, I'm a human person. I love technology. I use it every day. I'm a big LinkedIn user. I use all sorts of technology tools for our accounting company, our marketing company, God knows what, and it saves a huge amount of time and cost. Brilliant. But in this part of the world, humans will always do business with humans until the end of my lifetime. I guarantee it, right? And it's just built into the culture. And it's the same in Africa, it's the same in India, it's the same in Southeast Asia, so that's not going to change. So people and human capital are going to be a huge part of the growth of this country. It's just now starting to concentrate all these different nationalities, which is going to make it, I call it the new age platform to do business internationally. We're in a great time zone. We're in all these types of different things. We're a perfect platform to spread across the world, right? Ticking the box. Now, with AI, I think, yes, there's a lot of tools that are going to put a lot of people under pressure because people are going to feel as if they're falling behind if they don't embrace it. There's going to be a lot of people that are insecure about their jobs because the technology is going to replace them because it's far more efficient and cheaper. So I think AI is definitely interesting, but I also think baby steps, literally baby steps. And in the investment management world, I think AI-driven products to help portfolio management gather information on geopolitical or macro is a great tool. But the boss at the top, the human, is still going to have to make that decision on the investment. Because if you're managing my money, I want to blame a human, not a piece of technology, right?
No,
So I always say, as a fund manager, I'm charging a management fee, and I need, if I make the wrong investment in a new market, in an emerging manager, that LP would want to have a chat with me. Imagine if I said, oh, the technology made the wrong mistake. You're not going to get investment again. So I think that
absolutely.
human element of asset management, multifamily offices, boutique investment banks will be there. I just think the decision-making process, the data, the intelligence to make better decisions on investments will improve.
Yeah. And that can only be a good thing, ultimately. And it's interesting to hear you say about, especially in this part of the world, how it will always be people centric, especially for your lifetime. The last one of these we did was with Adam Malouf, who used to be the CIO of the Dubai Knowledge Fund, and he's gone back to Australia. He's coming back at some point soon, but he said in Australia, it's really interesting to see the difference from purely relationship driven here in the Middle East to, let's call it, a little bit more transactional back in Australia. Just a bit of a sort of reminder, he hadn't been back in sort of 20 plus years. So yeah, I think it's really interesting when you do these conversations with different people. While everyone has different experiences, it's always very interesting to see there are always certain things that each individual will say, yeah, there is no wiggle room on this. It is people driven, it is relationships, and it's very interesting. But that takes us really nicely into sort of leadership then. So what would you say, based on, from either lessons learned on the golf course from back in the day to running your businesses now to, the networking that you're doing, what are some of the biggest life lessons within leadership that you've learned in the sort of the career to date so far?
Life lessons. I think it was my oldest brother told me that if he was to go to zero tomorrow, he would make his money back again because he would figure out a way to do so. So I think for us, biggest life lesson is when you're used to not earning money for 3 or 6 months, understanding that the benefits will come a bit later and the benefits will be bigger than getting a monthly income. Then you get comfortable in zero environments. And I think the word zero scares a lot of people. And I think that was one of the biggest life lessons I learned, was starting these new businesses, investing, not investing in stock market or Bitcoin or anything can make me quick cash. No, I kept investing in trade licenses. I kept investing in people because I wanted to build companies, knowing that a year later I could get squeezed out of the market. I could, run out of cash. But I had that understanding of, if I go to zero, it's okay. I'll start again. So that kind of mentality of 6 months no pay, hustling, and going to the bottom and going back up again was very comfortable with me. I'm fine with that. And I think because I accepted that, it allowed me to just press on. right? And have that kind of vision of, okay, when you own your own business, you're going to have, I would like to think, 60 people that like you and 40 people that dislike you in the market. Why? Because that 40 people are competitors. You know,
Yeah.
you're always, in this day and age, you're always selling a service that somebody else is selling. May it be a corporate or another entrepreneur. Are they going to like you? Absolutely not. Why? Because us as humans, we're selfish. We want to strive. We want to get better every day. You want to provide for your family. You want to do this. So you kind of need this kind of forward thinking to kind of just keep pushing forward, get up every day and just kind of win business. And as I said, if it all fails, you start again. So that I would say that that's my biggest life lesson, is being comfortable with zero.
That's a really good one. I do like that. So if you looked at then, how have you been able to sort of balance tradition and innovation? And that's from your customers. So obviously there may be some more slightly more traditional customers. You're trying to bring innovation to them. And then also innovation in terms of the businesses, not, like we've just discussed there, not being fearful of a zero, but at the same time, still needing to get that balance. How have you kind of been able to read the market? Is it the right time to push this innovation? Is it the right client? Is it the right customer? How do you get the balance?
I think it's let's start with why I chose to network a lot, and kind of build this kind of community online and offline. So I built a couple of these small businesses because I wanted it to cover my golf membership and I wanted it to cover my rent. Simple. That was my first
Yeah.
target in coming into this country. Once I achieved that, then I wanted to run around like a headless chicken and meet all the big names,
Yeah.
anybody I could get in the door with, right? And that's when I set up the Category 3C license. I tried to flog a bunch of investments and it was great. I met so many people. Did they invest? Absolutely not, right? Complete waste of time, right? Because I have no track record. But I
Yeah.
met everyone and I'd like to think that I was polite, I did all the right things, and I made an effort to spend time with
Mm.
people and understand what they want and what they need. But I also realized that being in the UAE, people want you to be part of the community. They don't want you to be seen as running around like a headless chicken trying to make a quick win. So I
Yeah.
said, right, part of this learning curve, I need to flip the model a bit. I need to be part of this ecosystem and provide services to the ecosystem and kind of be in a position where people will come to me for the service opposed to me forcing the service down their neck. So I said,
Mm.
okay, well, let's grow a brand. Let's grow a personal brand. Let's provide free value online. And hopefully, again, take the long approach, knowing that it could enter zero, of magic will happen in the future if I
Yeah.
help people. So a bit of a risk because not everybody's willing to kind of return the favor and things happen and they move on and they forget about where they got the source. Okay, fine with that. So once I achieved that, I then said, okay, let's build a brand and let's put all these people under the brand and let's turn this
Yeah.
into a big washing machine. Let's get it moving. And since I've done that and taken this long approach, where we've had a US company invest in an Emirati business. I thought that would never happen. I thought it would be the way around. Everyone always expects Emirati business to invest overseas. Um, we've had, licensing deals, people sign all sorts of things. And the cool thing is I'm getting the CV out of it and the
Yeah.
satisfaction. Um, so I think one of my biggest tools moving forward is, pulling this network together is I've always wanted to learn from the bigger guys, the guys who are more
Mm.
successful than me. And my attitude was, what can I offer them? A lot of the time, you can't offer millionaires, billionaires anything, because they're already quite successful. But the one
Mm.
thing you can offer them is people. So I said, okay, well, business guys will always be obsessed with business. No matter how rich you are, they always love business. It's what they were born
Yeah.
to do. That's why they are in their position they are to today. So I said, well, I can deliver good people to you. May it be in your industry for recruitment, may it be
Mm.
for just pure trade of services or friends. I have a contact in this country. So since I've been doing that, my life has changed completely.
Yeah.
And I'm being taken on a path in the last 12 months, and I'm seeing where it goes for now. And I'm
That's
comfortable
interesting.
with that. I'm not uncomfortable with that. It's a bit of the
Yeah.
unknown. Um, so yeah, so I think that's kind of the next step for me, is to see where it goes.
It's pretty fun to have a bit of the unknown. If every day is very predictable, it soon gets boring. And that's generally why people move jobs. So keeping a bit of unpredictableness is always a good thing. You mentioned there the brand. How did you settle on what you wanted the brand to be, or was it this moving goalpost that I've got one or two key pillars and everything else is up for grabs from a flexibility standpoint?
I think in 2017 on LinkedIn, I decided to focus on family offices and family groups. And I stuck at it literally from that point. So you think, what, we're 7 years on, and I'm still
Mm.
preaching the same thing week in, week out. I even post at the same time because my attitude was, I can't take over the world. I can only build an audience around the same human schedule. So for us, we're creatures of habit. We do similar
Yeah.
things each day. Even if we're entrepreneurs, each day is different, but we do have certain times where we look at our phone, look at our computers, we have lunch, we have dinner. So the point was to build a community around a specific time and around a specific topic. And I just ran with it for the last 7 years, and I've enjoyed it. Now, growing the brand is tough because you have to get noticed. We live in an online world, right? Where
Yeah.
everybody's trying to get attention, everyone's fighting for business. And LinkedIn is a platform for entrepreneurs. If you've got a job there, expect to be approached. Expect
Mm.
the entrepreneurs are going to approach you because they want your business, right? So I always say the entrepreneurs are the ones on the offense, and you've got the employees on the defense, right? That's what LinkedIn is, and it's incredible. But also at the same time, there is B2B on the employee side. Fine. So I, started thinking about what's a millennial way. You know, I explain to people that LinkedIn is a platform for older people, and YouTube, LinkedIn. Well, YouTube's kind of a bit of everything, but Instagram and TikTok are a platform for younger generation. So how do we bridge the attention gap? So I think the best story was sitting in ADGM with my Cat 3C license, bored as hell, just after the pandemic. There's nobody there. I'm flicking through. I think I was eating a Waitrose lunch box, and I was flicking through my phone, just trying not like anybody does at lunchtime. We don't even, we just flick through our Instagram and scroll with our thumb, looking at all sorts of nonsense and things to distract us. I saw a dude with a sign in New York, pretty much who takes memes and puts them on a sign, holds them up in the city. I looked at an espresso box on the floor, and I looked at my phone, and I kind of went, and then I looked at ADGM Square. I was on the fifth floor of Al Khatam Tower, which overlooks the square, and I kind of went, hmm. So because there was no energy there at that time, it's different
Yeah.
now. I thought, what message can I write to kind of, I said, where are all the startup founders? Question mark. Because Dubai was very entrepreneurial and very loud about, starting a business, but Abu Dhabi didn't promote itself at that time. So went outside, got somebody in my office to take a picture of me. I held up a cardboard sign. And that was kind of the spark of being a bit different on LinkedIn about how to put a business message across and giving value. I started then providing lists of venture capital funds for startup founders. I then started how to digest family groups because they're quite complex. I started then digesting the sovereign funds because again they're quite complex. So then I started marketing the country, and Abu Dhabi as a city specifically, and that's kind of my brand. So I picked a specific location, I picked a specific topic, and I picked a specific time kind of zone to focus on, and I just remained consistent, and it built a personal brand. And I've got crazy ideas. Sometimes I have to think, is it professional for LinkedIn? Is it professional for the target audience that I'm approaching? So sometimes you have to be a little bit careful. Some things have worked, some things haven't. Some people think I'm some young, arrogant guy who does all these crazy things on LinkedIn, and some people actually see the value in it. So this is where
Yeah.
kind of the 60/40 model works, where you build a community, you add value to that community who like you do what you do. If people don't like it, that's fine. Again, you'll grow that community by doing the things that you like and what's worked. And that's been the birth of the personal brand. And then the personal brand today is everything, because your personal brand feeds into your businesses. Richard Branson, his personal brand is bigger than his business brand. So like, I think on LinkedIn he has like 4 million followers, but Virgin only has like 400k or 700k. So it's just my point is your personal brand in the modern day is stronger than your business brand. And a lot of us go for jobs to bigger brands to then get better jobs at bigger brands. So it's part of the ladder.
Yeah.
But at the same time, your human CV is important. So I think entrepreneurship and obviously job seeking with companies, we're seeing more entrepreneurs, right? You mentioned it earlier. People starting new ventures within bigger companies to do things different than their competitors. New marketing campaigns, guerrilla marketing. Let's spend $100 opposed to $100,000 by literally doing a simple piece of advertising that's different than everybody else. So sometimes being an entrepreneur within an organization doesn't always require money, but it does require a little bit of risk and imagination. And the UAE right now is competitive, and they're seeking the best. They're seeking the best entrepreneurs. They're seeking the best employees. So you have to be different, and how you're different is your personal brand has to stick out.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting, and I like the take on that. So in terms of then thinking of the brand, thinking of the future, what do you think is going to be the direction that's going to shape for the younger generations within those family offices over, say, the next decade? Do you see there being a shift in that messaging? Do you see there being, you mentioned there different platforms, different ages. Do you see there maybe being the birth of another platform? Do you see there being, a change in a messaging on a certain platform that somehow continues the bridge, or just something completely different altogether? Yeah, interested to get your thoughts on
We're
this.
specific to family offices and family groups, right? So let's get a bit more like finance and specific on that. So I think in the next 8 to 10 years, we've got a dad and mum generation that is in their 70s. So they may not be with us much longer. Like age expectancy here is not as high as other countries because they haven't had the infrastructure. But yes, now it should grow because we've got some of the best hospitals and healthcare on the planet now. Now, I think structurally, there's going to be a lot more family offices, local family offices set up in some of the free zones because you've got different members that want different things. You've got a daughter who's a doctor, you've got a son who wants to carry on. There'll be some separation, but they'll have their own entities with a couple of very sophisticated people managing that money. And it's on them to succeed or not succeed. So you're going to see volume increase and you're going to see separation in a way, but still with the respect of the family name. They'll do it under a different entity, but they will still respect the family name. Now, for many people who are not from the UAE, the UAE initially was split up into tribes. And the UAE families are very respectful to one another. They go to all the funerals, weddings, you name it, social gatherings. And I think naturally they will always work together to produce the best country, a thriving economy, the most modern industries, and they'll naturally do it together, whether you work in the public sector or the private sector. So I think the transformation of family businesses will always be quite localized. A lot of them will have a local incentive to put money into. But at the same time, because the rest of the world is seeing this place as more transparent, more regulated, Monday to Friday, they're willing to sacrifice some of the most traditional laws. Religion means that they're willing to collaborate with the rest of the world, which is fascinating. Yeah. So you're going to see a lot of entrepreneurs within the family businesses, building out their own family enterprises, as the third oldest brother might be the most successful, not the eldest brother. Right? Yeah. So I think the transformation of family groups and offices, regulation is big now. Corporate tax is driving it. Also international attention. I think the tribal culture is still incredible. So they'll always huddle together to make this economy amazing, and this country is the best place to live and work on the planet. And I think that continuity, it's talking about decision making. It's the Arabic expression of shura, SHURA, and as British, we call it human consensus. Of they collaboratively make decisions together, and this is where you say, before they invest in, if I'm in ADGM, I know, I don't know, Brevin Howard or Bridgewater, some of the biggest names in the investment world, they will still collaborate. In New York, it's more about, let's make some money. That's a big brand, of course. Yeah. Let's go. Over here, there's still that human consensus of discussion. So yeah, I think family office space, we're seeing with our events that we do, the data that's coming in towards our November event is incredible. We've got Swedish families, French, African, Indonesian, and they're all concentrating in the UAE because they see something happening here. It's trending, and it's a platform to access other parts of the world. And with geopolitics, it's very obvious what's going on in the world right now. We've got people squabbling over elections. We've got wars going on. There's also people who want a bit of comfort around where they set their future. And again, this place seems to be a good place to kind of navigate from.
No, absolutely. And that kind of takes us really nicely into, what would you say has been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from some of these sovereign funds and high net worth families? I know you may not be able to talk about exacts due to some confidentiality, but from a general standpoint, what's maybe the one or two things that's been a really useful life lesson that you have been able to take from these guys?
This country was built on, I call it, boring businesses, meaning they have a product and they sell it and they make money. Everybody knows that the Middle East makes money from digging stuff out the ground because they have very low seas and they're in a good part of the world to do so. Right? Trade, things come into this country and they move on. So a lot of these family businesses taught me that some of these, I call them boring businesses, that are more sustainable. The things that people don't see. May it be a paper mill, may it be a cement manufacturer, may it be even just a company that cleans hospitals, So all these boring services businesses are actually the most profitable when you look at some of these family businesses. And chasing the shiny stuff, as I call it, is something that they do. But deep down, they love the boring businesses, because that's how they built the family enterprise. So when I was first here, I was running around town, as I told you, like a headless chicken, trying to flog tech stock, pre-IPO stock in America. It was kind of through that, I call it, liquidity hype after the pandemic, where the Fed decided to just chuck loads of money into it. And everybody was doing an IPO and exiting in billions at that point. Obviously, it's different now. And they didn't get that entertained. They were kind of like, we're all right. We've never needed it before. And I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned is boring businesses, they work, provide a good service, look after your clients, and you'll have a happy life. And I stopped kind of chasing that, and I built with my brother a very boring accounting company. Accounting is nothing special. And we've actually spent a fortune on building an accounting software, which actually doesn't make money. It about breaks even, and we've got 200 something clients. We're thinking, do we shut it down because Amazon Web Servers have gone up in price? Everything seems to go up in price, so any money that comes in just goes straight back out the door. So we chase the shiny stuff. Don't get me wrong. As I told you, I try things, but that accounting company ticks along. It keeps ticking along. So within a portfolio, they've taught me, because my goal in life is I want to build my own family enterprise. I've always wanted to be that kind of younger brother who moved overseas and made money for our family and looked after mum and dad and my brothers. That was kind of a big driver of me. But it was actually my second oldest brother who taught me also about boring businesses, because he's the accountant. He said, we'll do this. We don't need to go like this. Let's just keep going like this. And it's the same thing that family groups here have taught me.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense as well, because it goes back to people. A successful service business is about people. The differentiator is the people. The most successful CEOs are the ones that understand their biggest customer is actually their client, their staff, to deliver the service, and then they're the ones that take care of the actual customer. It's in the external customer. So it's it makes a lot of sense, especially going back to some of the elements you said there. So I like that. So in terms of, you mentioned there you've taken risks, whether that's businesses, investments, etc. What's been one of the biggest successes that people told you not to do? I think it's always an interesting one. Like someone you told not to go after, and you said, "You know what? I'm doing an event." Okay.
Yeah. I think events are incredibly unvaluable for people a lot of the time, because the only person who benefits is the event organizer, because he's making the money and he's getting the limelight. He or she. Now, the family office word is heavily overused in this country, in a way that people just don't understand it. In the UK and America, a family office is quite a regulated structure, and it's very expensive, very. But over here, it's kind of that continuity of family business, family office. It's a bit overused. So it was tough going into that circle, because there was a lot of unknown of who's what and who's where. Also, Dubai is a concentration of so many different people from around the world, so it's quite hard to navigate and actually concentrate people. But events is also, you have to put yourself out there, because you have to build, again, not only a personal brand, you have to now build a brand that is all about attracting people, putting brands up there, putting names up there. And the family office space is quite private. So you're building an event that's public, but also your audience is very private. So I think events, I also took the long approach, because as I told you, filling up pages of sponsors and putting bums on seats will damage your reputation, because then you'll just be, I went to a great event the other day, but it wasn't very good. Why? Because I'm the only one who benefited from it, because I sold loads of sponsorships and I sold loads of seats. So I think the challenge was always there to kind of break the mold a bit, do things a bit different. And also, it's starting it with no track record. It was also another thing. So I now, today, I've done 4 events. We've got incredible partners now that are bigger institutions rather than smaller names that nobody had heard of. We took the long approach, which was focusing on the community and letting the magic happen on the back end. And I think that's benefited me. But I would say I was holding it off for years, because the event space is a tough one, because you're basically claiming, I've got the best event, I've got the best network, come to mine. And when you do that, you're somewhat expressing an opinion. which is never a good thing to do on the internet. So it's never easy, and an event is a concentration of people, and you're basically promoting brands and people to say I've got the best and the best, like everybody else. So it's a very kind of showy type thing, and you're never going to get international interest if you don't show. If you keep it private, they're the best events. But with private, how do you grow? You know, us the same 50 people, what we're going to meet every week. Great. At that point, honestly, after 4 months, we get a bit bored. Oh, I've already met you. I want to meet new people. That's how business is done. You know, then it's a numbers game. So I'm so glad I've done it now. But my God, was it hard? I mean, unbelievable. Just because, you don't realize you're going up against big brands like Forbes. You're going up against other types of big names that do their own events. And you're hoping that people turn up. Because my type of event is not a ticketed event where you put skin in the game. It's invited. So I could have 300 people not turn up at all. It's based on their choice.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, and I think especially in the UAE, if you've got a bit of the relationship, you've got a bit of the network, but you're providing that value in a different way. I think for something like events and your positioning, I can see why it does work, because it's one of those, do something a bit different than the big corporate. You know, I'm only using Forbes because you mentioned them. We're not saying anything negative against Forbes, but you know, I'm sure they have a certain way of doing things, and that's good. But I think it's probably refreshing to do things in a different way, and I mean that's probably part of the charm of it as well. You know, do things a little bit different, push the envelope a little bit.
But again, that's a risk. Doing things different, like we do high tables and chairs, and not the low big wedding tables what normally everyone sits around, which it looks like a ginormous nightclub. You know, it looks a bit strange, being honest. We built a stage which looks like an F1 press conference with podcast microphones like you're using. So people are like, oh God, I've got to sit forward and actually speak into this rather than sit back with a microphone and look all powerful and chilled out. So again, the first event was horrendous, right? We didn't know how it would work. I just said, let's build it this way. Nobody could hear themselves. So if this guy's talking to me, I couldn't hear him. And we accidentally put the speakers behind the stage. So literally, if it's a discussion, so they're panel, so they're talking and they have no idea what each others are saying. So not everything's always perfect, but we made it work. You know, people make it work, and you know, it becomes a bit more personalized, a bit more fun, because people they kind of talk away from okay, am I right in saying you said this? And then they go, okay, I'll deliberate that. So it becomes a bit more natural, which is quite nice. It's not always about the show. But that's enough about the event. But I held it off for 2 years. I wanted to do one after the pandemic, and I eventually did my first one in 2023. So it was on my mind. But I also wanted to see what's been done badly, and also think about it when the timing was right. And I think that's always a big thing for us as people, is timing is everything.
100%. And it's, you know, you can speak to somebody on one day and you get them at the wrong time. You speak to them even sometimes the next day and you get a very different outcome. So yeah, absolutely. In terms of, you know, going through some of the bits we've discussed here. So and this can be from a funny perspective. This can be, you know, maybe you don't say the exact name, but more the overview. What's been some of the weirdest partnerships, unusual partnerships, strange partnerships that you've been a part of? And they could have been unsuccessful, successful. It depends how you want to measure it. But just interested, is there like a real standout? I've got a funny story for you almost. I mean, they're always quite anecdotal.
Partnership. I mean, it's very easy to partner in this country because it's tough to understand what to do, what step to take. It's like if I was ever to go into Saudi, I would need a partner because I have no idea what I'm doing there. So I think partnerships always have the benefits and the negatives. So sometimes the team works, sometimes it doesn't. Look at all the football teams. You have good seasons and bad seasons. based on the team coming together. They're all
Yep.
superstars. They're all as good as each other, but they forget they're a team, and it's the team that wins. Not, you could stick Ronaldo on any team, but it doesn't mean they'll win. We've seen that. I mean, he's been shopping around for God knows how many years. He's an incredible guy, but it doesn't mean the team will win. So I think partnerships here are key. And we've been surrounded by big brands from around the world, and they've only come into this market through a partnership. I'll tell you some of the coolest stories. I don't like talking about the negatives. Let's talk about cool. So a guy who's actually speaking at my next event, he was one of the seed investors or early investors in Oatly, the oat milk.
Okay.
And he came over here initially, he's got a big portfolio. He was like, let's raise some money. Again, and this is where people have to be very open-minded when they come to this country, is he has a top performing company called Nix, which is one of these zero sugar brands promoted by the Kardashians, 50 million in revenue, amazing business. So he was like, I'm going to raise some money into this, and we're going to boost it up, and we're going to then have an IPO, and everyone's going to make loads of money. But would you believe it? He met a guy from Ayton Farms, which make milk from Ayton.
Milk.
I think we all have it. We all see it in the supermarket. And they said, "Oh, Oatly. Oh, yeah, I know Oatly. Yeah, I see it in Waitrose. I see it in Spinneys. Do you think you could make a plant-based milk for Ayton?" And literally, Nick's got pushed aside, this 50 million revenue shiny thing. And now he's on a path to make the first ever plant-based milk for the UAE. So crazy. I think the story of the message there is a lot of the time when you come in with you may get something completely different, but then is just as more beneficial than anything else. And what that guy did was basically said, as a family business locally, I can make money. Don't get me wrong. We're okay. Like if we close the doors at the border, we'll be fine. And sending money to America is great. Again, that's something I can do every day. But what I can't do is use your brain power and your expertise to make the UAE better. And I think that's the key of partnership here, is if you are talented overseas, if you want to bring that talent here, there is thousands of people waiting for you to work with you to roll out your expertise locally, because we want to build the economy locally. But the last thing a lot of people want to do is send money overseas to make the US market better or the Europe market. Because making money, everybody's pitching me every day to make money, but nobody's pitching to help me make this country better or invent something that's not been done here before. Now, if you led with that conversation first, trust me, you'll do a lot better than. So someone like him, okay, he's had a great history. He does all right for himself. He came in with this perspective of, I have this company, it's making 50 million in revenues in the US, promoted by the Kardashians, tick, 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 tick. The local family couldn't care less. But what he did care about was, hang on, you can make plant-based milk for us? You have that technology and you have the patent for all this? Yeah. Okay, please come this way. Let's get going. Day one, let's go. So I think that's one of the best partnership stories I've ever heard. Somebody coming in with a great CV, probably the best investment opportunity that has been around in the FMCG space. But then the local family went on a completely different spiral.
So interesting. And again, so
no, we may see that brand in the next 6 months pop up in our stores.
Yeah, and it's that might be just simply something they're playing with the idea of. It might be, do you know what, one of the siblings maybe has a particular dietary need and it serves them, but then serves the country and all these things. So it's like you said, it's listening, understanding, and then solving a problem that benefits the country. It's
and the family.
I like it.
The family and the country, because as I told you, 90% of this country in the private sector is run by families. So solving a problem for a family eventually will solve an issue for the country. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. From my side, look, I could definitely chat to you all day. This is super interesting stuff, but I'm also conscious of everyone's time. So if we were to sort of move towards the end, as it were, if you had now we've spoke throughout about a couple of lessons, a couple of bits of takeaways, but if you were to summarize the one, the two, the three, whatever those, and this is messages for other people, so something that, looking back on your life so far, if you'd have done this differently at the start, that may have had you further down the road. Now, again, there is this, don't be afraid to take risk, make things, break things, etc. So there's a little bit of all that. But is there any sort of life lessons which are on the first bit, kind of what you may have done a bit different that you could pass on to people? And is there a look for maybe the younger generation coming through, XYZ is always a great thing to be involved with, whether that's leadership, personality, or just simply learnings that they should do? So that can be kind of 1, 2, 3 things, but just a sort of takeaway message on today, a bit of a summary would be a really nice sort of wrapping things up.
Let's do this based on what we discussed. So I think I was obsessed with trying to please and make everyone happy when I started building my personal brand. What I put out, I thought was completely honest. I'm giving lists of investors and saying, go after it. What's the harm of this? But then I was being a thought leader in the family office space, which has competition, and I didn't understand why anybody would dislike that. So, as I said, in the business world, there's competition. In entrepreneurship, there's competition. And you have to put yourself out there to win business, and you have to put yourself out there and take risks to grow your business. So it's either you do it or you don't, right? So I think I took the mentality of I can't please anyone. This is where I took that kind of 60-40 mentality of just as long as you're doing good and you're providing value, there will always be a 60 over a 40, because there will, because it's based on just personal passion, the value that you're creating and showing up. All of that creates a 60 kind of heavy over 40. I think the second thing was, when we spoke about, was the being comfortable with zero. I think anybody in a corporate role looking to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be comfortable with not making money and taking the money down the line. If it's not for everyone, people have big families, people aren't in that situation, absolutely fine. Nobody's going to judge you. It's just getting comfortable with that, and also taking a year out and following a dream and it not happening. That's fine, as long as you're comfortable with it. As I said, hitting to the bottom and then moving back into what you were doing, but at least you gave it a go, right? Pat on the back. And you kind of got it out of your mind. So mental health kind of moves forward because you got that bit out of your mind. Right, I tried it, didn't work, not for me. I'm not that type of person. We accept that. And I guess the last thing for me is I got lucky on the UAE. I think I came at the right time. And I would tell most people here, I think England is quite restricted. I think the US have their own geopolitical situation. And I'm just picking those two territories because that's where I kind of came from. And I think this place is a fresh platform where it's safe. It's expensive to live. It is. But you kind of reap the rewards because everybody around you is looking nice, positive, all these types of good things. So every day you wake up, the sun's in the air. Everybody's safe. Everyone's walking around. People are smiling. There's no loud noises. Nobody. Well, there's a little bit of beeping the horns from some of the taxi drivers, but you get what I mean. The consensus of things around you are peaceful. So I think it's a great platform to take a risk on, even if it's for a year. And people like yourselves, I'm sure you've got the amount of people coming in, and also the amount of new businesses that are setting up here looking for human capital. I mean, it's just growing, and I think that's going to easily continue for the next 10 years, easily. So yeah, I think that's kind of the last three things I can say is the 60-40 rule, not being able to please everyone, the being comfortable with zero, and also, blowing the trumpet of the UAE and saying it's the platform of the future.
And look, those are great things. I think what's nice about those, tying all of them together, it's a mindset thing. And I think, you need that mindset of being able to go to zero, the mindset of, giving the UAE and understanding what it's about. And I think, again, from a human capital perspective, the mindset of what are we trying to achieve and getting the right people in to do that. So yeah, it's a great way to tie up today. I think from my side, I've really enjoyed the chat. I think there's been some really good stuff that we've explored.
Thanks,
I hope the listeners, yeah, no, absolutely. And I hope the listeners have taken away the same things and enjoyment that I have today for sure. Again, please, feel free to follow Obi on LinkedIn and check out his events and so on. And yeah, look, again, thanks so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll catch up again soon. And thanks a lot, and have a great day. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks, Oliver.